The FTC is now saying that Microsoft is not providing a bunch of documents, and those documents have to do with the next generation Xbox, the Xbox ecosystem anyway, as they refer to it. It has to do with Microsoft's exclusivity agreements. And there's a lot of interesting stuff that the FTC is asking for, meaning we could get to learn even more about Microsoft in the near future. Let's dive into this right now. So, taking a look at this document, it is very, very interesting. Now, I've gone through, I've read it myself. That's how I like to do things. Apologies for being a little later than expected on this one. Real life sometimes gets in the way. But let's read what the FTC has to say. They are motioning to compel Microsoft to produce exactly what they want, and I believe it was approved. Complaint Counsel respectfully moves the court for an order compelling respondents Microsoft Corporation and Activision Blizzard to conduct a reasonable search for and produce in a timely fashion documents responsive to request number 1, 3, 6, 11, and 16 and request number 1, 2, 5, 7, and 8 in Complaint Counsel's second set of requests for production of respondents, respectively, the RFPs. And now they're going to go over exactly what those RFPs are and what they want to discover from Microsoft. And it's some really, really juicy stuff. More than 5 weeks after receiving 32 document requests, the RFPs, respondents have produced only a smattering of self-selected documents in response and have refused to produce anything at all for 24 requests. Now, by a smattering, they mean 3.6 million documents between Microsoft and Activision. Just Microsoft alone in the first request provided 2.1 million. I do find that somewhat interesting. And I believe it's actually a legal strategy to give the Complaint Counsel as much information as you possibly can. And then it's not really your responsibility, I don't believe, to help them find what they're looking for to make their case. But yes, you have to give them those documents. So I have to imagine that is a strategy. But let's hear what the FTC has to say. This is not for lack of extensive efforts by Complaint Counsel to reach a compromise, where possible, including holding 6 separate meetings and confers, engaging in extensive correspondence with respondents and identifying priority requests. Respondents have offered a hodgepodge of unavailing arguments that the RFPs are overly broad and burdensome, that the RFPs are duplicative of the second request specifications, and that they already produced a large volume of documents in response to the second request and in their refresh of that second request production. Sounds like the lawyers are doing the job, just like Sony's lawyers were doing their job when they were dragging their feet and making arguments about why they should not do it. Seems like a standard legal practice. Anyway, when a party fails to comply with its discovery obligations, a motion to compel under Rule 3.38 is appropriate. And I believe their motion to compel is approved at the end of this document, which is very exciting for me because it means, in addition to the Sony documents, now we're going to get the Microsoft documents. I can't wait. See, people actually think that I only want to see Sony documents. No, I absolutely want to see the Microsoft documents, because if Microsoft loses, I get to make content about it. If Sony loses, I get to make content about it. If all their dirty laundry gets aired out there, we all get to learn about it and talk about it. It's exciting stuff. So people just miss the plot with that one. Anyway, Microsoft produced approximately 2.15 million documents during the second request and approximately 480,000 documents in its refreshed production. Activision produced approximately 892 documents during the second request and approximately 118,000 documents in its refreshed production. So a million and change for Activision and 2.15 million for Microsoft, within an additional like 2.6 million documents from Microsoft and 1 million from Activision about. The instructions to the RFP state that respondents do not need to produce documents that were already produced during the investigation. Respondents should have conducted a diligent search for RFPs. Instead, they caused weeks of delay, argued over each and every RFP, and ultimately agreed only to limited go-gets for a handful of RFPs. I read that as they're playing a little bit dirty. What leverage do they have for a request from the FTC? delay it as long as they possibly can. That's what Sony's whole playbook has been in this. And go watch. I've said, I think Sony's doing a smart thing here. They're trying to get the best deal that they possibly can out of all this. And if I haven't said it, I'm saying it right now. I think that that's what their strategy has been from the get-go. But when I talked to Pachter, he pointed out that, yeah, Sony, you have the best deal that you're going to get. So now you're kind of in that point where you can either accept the deal or hope for the best, because Microsoft could end up changing those terms and conditions if nobody seems to care about the exclusivity agreements. And a lot of people seem to care that I asked for you to subscribe, but that's how channels grow. And please consider hitting that subscribe button, hitting that bell. I did make a promise to make it less obtrusive. I hope it's been less obtrusive, but if it's really annoying and you just can't stand it, you can't stand that I would dare ask people to subscribe to my channel, let me know in the comments below. Anyway, continuing on. The court will limit discovery only if the discovery sought is unreasonably cumulative or duplicative, or is obtainable from some other source that is more convenient, less burdensome, or less expensive, or if the burden and expense of the proposed discovery outweigh its likely benefit. And they're asking for some interesting stuff. So they want to produce post-complaint documents. Respondents' refusal includes, for example, Microsoft's internal documents and correspondence related to ongoing negotiations with key third parties and submissions to regulators. So they're submitting documents to the CMA right now, which means we might get a gleam of what those conversations have been. We won't actually get to read the exhibits, but when you read the comments, you get insight into what they're discussing. Like, you can read between the lines and you can actually see that they actually reference the next gen Microsoft console, which I find somewhat interesting. In addition to that, Microsoft just closed another deal yesterday. I made the video about it with Boosteroid, and then they sold the one with, I believe it was a Japanese company. So the FTC wants to see documents about what those deals entail. Instead, Microsoft has chosen a self-serving approach to discovery, by which respondents get to choose what is relevant to the matter. The position is untenable. For example, Microsoft recently produced a set of agreements with certain third parties that would make Activision content available for their services post-transaction, and agreed to produce some external communications regarding these agreements. But Microsoft will not produce external communications or proposals sent to other third parties, and will not produce any internal documents related to any agreements or proposed agreements. So on the one hand, I think the FTC is doing the right thing here, trying to get Microsoft to actually turn over the documents relevant to their case. And the documents they want are real interesting to me. I have to imagine that the reason Microsoft isn't turning over third-party documents to the FTC is because there's a potential those agreements are protected under law. So I'm not sure what's going on there, but I think some of those agreements with like Boosteroid, which just went through, can you just turn that over to the FTC? Yeah, here you go, with a bunch of confidential information that you don't have the right to. I have to wonder if the attorneys are like, well, we literally can't give you that, and we don't have to. So maybe they're dragging their feet a little bit, but it's not going to matter very soon because they're going to be compelled to give it over. Respondents pointed to the volume of documents produced in the investigation as evidence that they have produced enough documents and should not be required to conduct diligent searches specifically in response to complaint counsel's RFPs. I actually made a joke about that one, and I got a lot of SHIT for it. But I made the joke that we've produced 3.6 million documents, and the FTC's reaction is, "What are you hiding?" I thought it was funny. People call me a journalist. They always use journalists when they don't like the joke, right? You call yourself a journalist. Anyway, complaint counsel has discussed each RFP in detail, with respondents proposed specific search terms and even cited specific file names of responsive documents that have not been produced. Microsoft has argued that running any set of search terms would be burdensome after using technology-assisted review for the investigation. Complaint counsel does not oppose the use of TAR. Sort it out, Microsoft. If they're allowing you to use TAR, type in Bethesda and just send them the search results, because you know that's what they want. Here are the RFPs that they want. And I know this video is going on a long time, so just skip to the 10-minute mark if you want to see the really juicy stuff. RFP 1, request material sent to blank, the blank. Anyway, Microsoft is taking the position that it has fully satisfied this request, even though Complaint Counsel has also identified specific file names of documents that have not been produced in the 2019 to 2022 time period. We don't really know what RFP1 is. It's material sent to Bobby Coat. It's material sent to somebody. I don't know who it is. The FTC is also requesting something from, I had too many tabs open. I hope I didn't just close it. This company who just asked for a motion of time. It's company Cornerstone Research. So I'm wondering if those are the, here, I just brought it up really quick. This is from the FTC website, right? So Cornerstone Research is requesting time to get more documents together, or of course squash it, because apparently that's just a legal thing that people do. So I'm wondering if those are the documents that RFP1 is referencing. I don't know. I do not know. We will have to wait and find out. Microsoft said it has fully satisfied this request, even though Complaint Counsel has also identified specific file names. We went over that. RFP3, I don't know where RFP2 is. Request documents related to crossplay, i.e. features that enable gamers to play a game together across different companies' products. Microsoft made a similar agreement when it acquired ZeniMax, but subsequently decided to take newly acquired ZeniMax titles exclusive. Crossplay. Does the FTC not understand what crossplay is? Crossplay is like in Fallout 76 or Elder Scrolls Online, which I wish had crossplay, where PlayStation players can play with Xbox players. Call of Duty has this where PlayStation and Xbox can play together. Epic Games has this where they can play together. And as we know, Sony produces or charges a crossplay tax to developers who choose to implement that service. Microsoft, as far as we've heard in the news, is very open to crossplay. They don't particularly care. It's more of a contractual thing. So I'm curious, for example, crossplay enables gamers playing Call of Duty on Microsoft Xbox to play with gamers playing Call of Duty on Sony PlayStation. Something, I don't know what this redacted is, but Microsoft made a similar argument when it acquired ZeniMax, but subsequently decided to take newly acquired ZeniMax titles exclusive. Starfield isn't an online game. It's a single player game. So I'm interested to see whatever Microsoft's statement is about crossplay, but I think correlating that to single player games doesn't really make sense. Redfall, nobody seems to care about. Everybody's just talking about Starfield, but Redfall would actually be a more compelling example of a game that could have had crossplay, maybe, that does not now. But nobody cares about Redfall, right? Look, PlayStation fans, I'm trying to make your argument better for you. You keep looking at Starfield, which is a contained single player experience. I think you got a little bit more meat with Elder Scrolls, which they've said will be exclusive, because in the past that was cross-platform, right? But you got Redfall sitting right there and nobody's talking about it. You don't care about Redfall, right? You just care about Starfield because maybe that was supposed to be PlayStation exclusive, because in the CMA documents, PlayStation said that. Anyway. Second Request Productions covered this request, but took no steps to confirm. In fact, the second request did not include a specification related to crossplay. Okay. Microsoft effectively conceded the relevance of this topic when it requested documents relating to crossplay from a third party in this litigation, Sony. Microsoft's contradictory position in that it can seek relevant documents on this topic from a third party while avoiding similar discovery from its own files. Starfield doesn't have crossplay. So they're asking for two things in that request, it sounds like. Crossplay, Microsoft, give it over. Crossplay related to a single player experience? That doesn't really make sense to me. That seems like a different request. They want to know, was Starfield ever going to be exclusive, right? Anyway. RFP6 request documents related to blank, the codename for Microsoft's next generation gaming ecosystem, is part of Microsoft's forward-looking strategy for its console, subscription, and cloud gaming business, all markets in which Complaint Counsel alleges harm. Microsoft is working on a next-gen console, and they have a whole bunch of documentation that the FTC wants. I didn't see anything about that. No one talked about that. They talked about like the number of documents and everything, and nobody thought that was interesting. I think that's interesting. Anyway. RFP 11 requests all documents related to exclusivity of content Microsoft acquired from ZeniMax and here we go. RFP 11 is what they want. All documents related to exclusivity of content Microsoft acquired from ZeniMax and exclusivity of content Microsoft proposes to acquire from Activision. In addition to post-complaint documents Microsoft refuses to produce, Complaint Counsel does not have a complete set of relevant documents from the time period covered by the investigation. That would be really interesting to get, because what if before all this started, they were going to make stuff like Diablo exclusive, and then after they weren't? Because since they have said everything is going to remain multi-platform, that statement has been out there. So it would be interesting to see that timeline. Microsoft has not produced the document. Complaint Counsel has proposed search terms aimed at identifying this and other relevant documents, including by using specific titles that Microsoft has made exclusive or has made exclusive. What did they make exclusive? Starfield? You need the proof that Starfield was going to be released on PlayStation. And as far as I know, there isn't that. But these documents would give us written proof. There's like one interview with GameSpot that I've seen where it was alluded to that maybe it was going to come out on other platforms, but now it's not. And people are really like upset about that. Like Final Fantasy 16 is exclusive. I wouldn't say I'm upset about that, but I would point to that as a bit of a hypocritical statement on Sony's part about exclusivity agreements, especially like because they and Square have been buddy-buddy for so long. Microsoft has refused any approach that will require it to produce new responsive documents. RFP 16 requests all documents related to making Activision content available on competing products and services after the proposed transaction closes. So that's interesting that this is Activision content available on other services. Despite clearly intending to use these agreements in its defense, Microsoft has refused to produce... Did my son just come into the office? Daniel, where did I leave off?
Microsoft has refused to produce underlying internal documents related to these agreements or communications with third parties other than NVIDIA, Nintendo, and Sony. Microsoft should not be permitted to introduce or rely on these agreements without producing the requested underlying discovery. So we could learn more about what those deals entail and what those offers entail. Activision should produce documents responsive to the following Well, actually, just thinking on that for a second, if they have to give Sony the Nintendo agreement, then Sony can use that as leverage to get the same agreement as Nintendo. Or if NVIDIA, like everybody's going to get to see everybody else's agreements, that's tough for a business, I suppose. Activision should produce documents responsive to the following RFPs. RFP 1 requests documents related to gaming consumer preferences, factors affecting consumer purchase decisions, and consumer willingness to switch from one gaming console to another, because they think that people will switch consoles, which doesn't matter. You have to remember the whole FTC's case is that this would be damaging to competition, not that it would be damaging to Sony. And the whole case is, well, this could make Sony an even competitor with Microsoft, and we don't want that. At least that's how it feels, because all of the stuff that they're talking about are concerns that Sony has and concerns with Sony. Now, if it's about the overall market, like, the documents are just about crossplay with other consoles and such. So like, it's just weird to me, right? RFP 2 requests documents related to the relevance of crossplay, which we've already kind of gone over. RFP 5 and 7, and actually Activision games have crossplay, like Call of Duty has that anyway. RFPs 5 and 7 respectively request documents relating to offering Activision on subscription services and cloud gaming services, including services from NVIDIA GeForce, and Nintendo, Google, and Amazon, and request documents related to offering Activision games on Nintendo devices. Ooh, Activision probably did not have good things to say about that at the time. RFP 8 requests documents relating to purported cannibalization of purchase games buy-to-play by subscription services and whether consumer behavior differs between buy-to-play and user subscription services. You know what, FTC, I'll give you that one. That makes sense, and I think that one definitely makes sense. So the long and the short of it is you scroll through all this and it's all the other orders. And then here's the proposed order. Upon consideration of the Complaint Counsel's motion to compel Microsoft Corp. And Activision Blizzard to produce documents requested by Complaint Counsel's second set of requests for production of documents and opposition thereto, it is hereby ordered that Complaint Counsel motion is granted, meaning we might get to see some of these documents, or at least
details about those documents. It is further ordered that respondents shall immediately run the searches attached to the complaint counsel's motion to compel as Exhibit A and otherwise take all necessary steps towards producing to complaint counsel all requested documents responsive to request numbers 1, 3, 6, 11, and 16 to respondent Microsoft and request numbers 1, 2, 5, 7, and 8 to respondent Activision from complaint counsel's second set of requests for production of documents issued on January 27, 2023 within 21 days of the issuance of this order. So that puts us to late what are we, March? I don't know what month it is. It's either putting us to late March or early April for when we figure it out. And then it's a bunch of redacted exhibits. So that's what's going on with the FTC hitting back at Microsoft, who has not been forthcoming with all information. Maybe forthcoming is the wrong word because they did give them a whole butt ton of documents. 3.6 million was that the number that I said off the top of my head. Yeah, that is a lot. But I'd love to hear what you think about this one. Very interesting stuff. And just like getting access to all the Sony documents, now we could get access to some juicy Microsoft documents. It's like Christmas Day. Thanks so much for watching, everybody. If you like my content, consider hitting that subscribe button, hitting that bell, especially if you're one of the people who are not subscribed. If you want to become a member, memberships are turned on. Still need to update the list. I've been very busy, but I do appreciate the new members. I will get to it. Click that join button and you can become a member now. I'm going to be making a video about the CMA thing. In the meantime, check out this interview I did with Pachter because it seems relevant to the FTC case. I'm going to get out of here and I'll see you for the next one. Bye for now, everybody.
Oh.
I know. Yeah.